I just started it up. So, hey, welcome everybody to this Coach Trout PE podcast. Today we have two special guests. We have Corey Martin and Mr. Nick Williamson. Could you go ahead and give us a little brief background? Nick, you can go first, and then Corey, you can go ahead after.
So I've taught PE for a while. I don't know, almost a little over a decade. And my new jam is making PE videdos. Is that what? Do you have any more you want me to say
man,
there?
Like what is, like, I don't know, something that you do that makes you different than other people?
Oh man, I've got a website. It's called bewellplayed.com, and just try to make life easier for other PE teachers or people who like to get kids active and moving. I've been the PE teacher, summer camp counselor, after school care director. And so I kind of try to cater to all of those crowds, just people who want to get kids up and moving and get them active, getting them to love sweating.
Get better.
That's right.
Go ahead, Corey. Could you give us a different snippet of your life today?
Well, I can tell you what separates Coach videos from everybody else's. His graphics are on a whole new level, like a whole different level of graphical work over there. It's impressive. It's very impressive. Put it like that.
It's been a learning curve this year. I've learned a lot this year as far as graphics go.
Look, when I saw your Snowfright game, I'm like, man, there's no way I will ever be able to produce something as graphically impressive as that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's kind of my go-to is I'm like, what can I do that nobody else can? Is where I go there.
And I think the other thing that you posted the other day, Nick, then it was just like a nice moment for your short, YouTube careers. You had somebody said that this is like a cheap version of Pixar.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw that.
Awesome. Kids' YouTube comments they're so awesome. The things that they say, it's just so like, right, what zero filter. This is a low budget Pixar thing. It's good. Like, that's like one of the nicest things anybody's ever said to me.
Yeah, kids are blunt, man. Especially, you've been teaching for 10 years. I have too. George, you're in the classroom. I mean, some of the things that kids say in school, it's like, wow, you really do have no filter, but it's a good thing. Everybody's honest. And if you're going to learn and grow and pick up on new things, that's what you need. You need honesty all the way around, and little kids will give it to you. If they don't like a game, they'll tell you.
Nick, sure. You live in Kansas City. Were you born and raised out there?
I was born in Oklahoma, but I've lived in Kansas City since I was like 3. I don't remember anything else.
So what are the challenges that the Kansas City PE teachers deal with out there? Is there like tornadoes or anything crazy that I haven't heard of that just like general knowledge as a PE teacher?
Yeah, we get tornadoes from time to time. In fact, tornado weather is like it's awesome. It's like the sky turns like all green and just gets kind of eerie outside. And I mean, normally you develop like a healthy respect for it. Like, it's like, it's tornado weather. We're going to go out, we're going to check it out. But then, you hear the sirens, whenever you get into a safe space. And so.
Nick, you just gave me an idea for the next chase game.
Is a tornado one?
Tornado chase.
I like it.
Nick, do you have any videos? You should send Corey some of your videos of tornadoes you've recorded in the past. Send it on over his way.
I've actually only one time in my life have I seen a tornado, and it was way off in the distance, and it was actually kind of terrifying because we were driving on the highway, and it's way better to be at home during a tornado than to be out on the road. So it's when you're a high school driver, and that's a little terrifying.
Oh man, that would be scary, man. We've all driven teenagers in a vehicle and experienced that, like, moments where you're like, things are going wrong or could go wrong, and thank goodness, usually we're protected. Someone out there's praying for us. Someone out there's taking care of us somehow, some way. So Corey, what's the latest and greatest from you, man? You just released a big 30-minute video. It was like a little little mini series collection
Yeah,
into
yeah.
one?
I apologize for not answering your question earlier. You asked for a little background. I live in the Outer Banks, North Carolina, and you mentioned tornadoes. We have water spouts out here. Have you ever heard of a water spout?
I've
Negative.
not heard of a water spout.
When like a tornado type weather event forms over the water, it literally, look it up, it lifts the water up and the water takes on the shape of like a tornado, and you'll just twirl around. And usually it doesn't happen in the ocean, it happens in the sound. So I live on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which is like a strip of island that has the ocean on one side and then the sound on the other side that separates it from the mainland. And when the weather plays its cards right in the sound, you'll see a water spout, and that is terrifying. That's our version of a tornado.
That's crazy.
Yeah, look it up, water spout. And then hurricanes. We have hurricanes. But yeah. It's a 25-minute video, and I talked to both of you guys on the side just to share ideas and collaborate. And I get a lot of questions about the order of the chase games, because I'm a fly by the seat of my pants creator, meaning when I create the first game, I don't really have a plan of creating the second game. It just kind of flows. Like I'll just talking to you guys about a tornado. Hey, that'd be a fun chase idea, a tornado chase. Let's create that one. And then I'll start working on that and I'll spit it out. And one idea basically leads to the next.
Oh, the final level should be a water spout.
Yeah. It's like a little lesson there in earth science, make it more educational.
Yeah.
So yeah, the idea behind the 25-minute videos is just to give people an opportunity to play all the games in sequence and in the order that they were meant to be played. Because a lot of people, the way YouTube's organized, it can be easy to get lost and not necessarily find what you're looking for. So I'm trying to create that easy access to the storyline of the Chase series.
Fantastic. Nick, what big projects have you been working on? What's the latest that you've got going on?
Oh, I've got so people loved Snowfright, and so I was like, all right, I need to follow that up. And I had the idea. Snowfright took me for so long to make. It took me from the concept of it all the way till finishing level 5, it took me like 2 months. So by the time I finished level 5, I had the idea for the follow-up for it, which was going to be just the flip side. We have the ice world, and now we were going to do the fire world with dragons and whatnot. And so that was another one of those where I kept on starting it, and I was like, man, I just don't have the 2 months of energy to put into this project right now. I'm going to do some other stuff. And but I got a lot of really encouraging comments on Snowfright. I was like, all right, finally, we're gonna get down to it. And then so I created Paradise Valley, which we've got some dragons, some massive spiders. There's this I was playing it with my kids last week. We just finally got back in person, and there's a part at the end of level 3 where something else comes out, and one of my first graders, just out of the middle of nowhere, we're playing the game, he goes, "What the hell is that?"
I mean,
it was
no filter.
It was great. They were just so into it, and and so in level 2 you get to ride a dragon, and that actually came from one of the guys that does our Friday night PE chats, Victor Spadaro. He said that one of his students was like, at the end of Snowfright, I show the dragon coming at you, and one of his students was telling him, it'd be so cool if you got to ride the dragon. And man, just kids come up with the best ideas. And I never would have thought about putting you on the dragon, riding it, and finding a way to mix the physical activity into that. And but man, it turned out really well. So
crazy. Okay, so I've been working on this the past couple of days. Cave Chase, which is I had dragons at the end of Castle Chase, if you saw Castle Chase, which was like a week and a half ago. And so I'm working on the sequel to that now, which is Cave Chase. And it's got, everybody wanted more dragons, so I'm throwing more dragons in it. Spoiler alert, I'm bringing it up because you just mentioned it. I tried the first 2 levels with my kids at school, which I'm sure you probably do the same thing. Uh-huh. And one of my kids literally said, "Let's ride the dragon in level 3." I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Same thing as you. I'm like, that's a great idea. So spoiler alert, Cave Chase is going to end with the same exact thing. You jump on a dragon and the drag, you're going to have another epic boss battle with another dragon. It sounds very similar.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I have an idea that's similar, but a little different. I shared with Corey like an idea that I got in my brain right now, but now that I've actually thought it through, I know what I'm going to do. I think we're going to start on the sun, and we're going to travel to each of the planets in our solar system, and we're going to get to fly the spaceship. I haven't, nothing. I mean, I'm not all the way through with the actual creating part, but now that I have the vision, I know where we're starting, and I know where we're going to finish. Because I was like, how could I do it? I don't want to like just copy Corey's ideas. I don't want to copy anybody else's idea. I want it to be like an educational, fun journey for me too. So
yeah,
now you know, Corey. So now that I've said it, I have to follow through. You got to hold me to it.
Look, man, there's no such thing as copying. I mean, well, there is, but ultimately you got to make it your own. And that's what's we talked about this the other day, you know, like I could take an idea from you, you could take an idea from me, but if it's going to be the best thing that it could possibly be, you got to make it yours, because that's how you're going to be able to buy into it and truly make it as good as it could potentially be.
Oh
yeah, I think so. If Corey and I were both to do a tornado game, it would come out wildly different, but I think both would be equally as entertaining.
Right. Well, take the dragons for example. You just did a dragon one. I'm working on a dragon one. They sound, us talking about it, they sound very similar, but I guarantee you when you play the game and watch it, you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely his style and that's definitely his style. So it's like you make it yours, I make it mine. That's what makes it so great.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I gotta say, like I think it was the Cave Chase one, the chains, like it's something that's so simple, but it was so engaging. Like there's something so satisfying about the way that like the chains like broke, like everything from like the sound design to the way that it looked. Like that
was another perfect idea. It was because I'm always thinking like, you know, this is the 13th chase game and it's all the same slide and jump and duck, which is great. People love it. But I'm always trying to think of what can we add to it. Let's make something new to this game that they haven't seen before. And in Castle Chase, it's like, oh, you got to have a shield and you got to have a sword. And I'm asking the kids like, look, I love the sword idea, but we can't like chop heads off or chop arms off. You know, can't have that in school. So what can we break? And that's where the kid came up with another kid came up with the idea of let's break some chains. I'm like, oh yes, great idea. We'll break some chains.
Yeah.
So, appreciate it. Good compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm excited to see where it leads us to next, Corey. I think there's going to be some fun stuff coming out pretty soon that the kids are going to be getting. Is
this podcast going to be live after, how long is it going to be?
We got 3 weeks on this one. We got, I have Greg Dreyer. He's coming out this Saturday, and then I have you by yourself, and then it's going to be this one.
Okay. Okay.
So then I can
so I can talk about my new game that's not going to be out for.
Oh, so I get all the insight.
2 weeks from now. I haven't shared this with anybody. This is a little break from the norm. Is so like dance is not my jam. Like I am horrible at teaching dance. Like more power to the people who post the dancing videos, because that like makes my life 100 times easier. Level 4 of Snowfright is actually a dance, because I wanted to be able to like trick kids into liking dance, the kids like me. And so it's like, oh, we're bouncing on these like lava balls and hitting, you know, ice balls and dodging things, and it's somehow a dance. But so I embraced the trend, and I've got this game that it's a freeze dance pop. And so I took things that everybody loves. Like kids are always like, oh, we love like the popping things. And, you know, I was talking to Corey the other day and he's like, oh, like I was talking about the Easter game that I dropped, the Egg Crack Road. He's like, oh, what if you had things that you could pop in it? And I was like, man, kids do love to pop stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have, they also love freeze dance. So I've got this freeze dance pop, and it's a lot of fun. I added some interesting challenges in there and whatnot throughout the game, and just finished it yesterday.
Oh, so what programs do you use, Nick? And how do you how do you come up with these ideas and follow through with them? Like, I think we spoke very briefly right before this conversation, but can you break it down for us simpletons?
Yeah. So, I mean, I got my start like most people just working in PowerPoint. I use Keynote because I use a Mac. And so I've done Keynote for a long time. Like I started out, I was talking to Mick Seifert this morning in a chat, and he was like, I didn't realize you were making videos back in 2012. It's like, yeah, I was making little animated instructions for games that I liked way back then. So I mean, I've been doing some animation off and on with Keynote, and then I don't know, a few years back I got Motion, which is something that comes with Final Cut, and that's like a 3D animation software. And so I've kind of off and on learned a little bit of that, and it's just so time consuming that I never really put much out with it. And so I worked a lot in PowerPoint. I don't do that as much anymore, just because I think that Final Cut and Motion is so much more powerful. And then learning some new software right now, that some 3D animation stuff that's just insane. So I'm super thankful for, all the people that are watching the videos that I put out, people who have signed up for the arcade that I have on my website. And that's just allowed me to do some things that I never could have done without having, I mean, I'm not going to use my school's budget to make my YouTube videos. And so it's super nice being able to, invest in some better software to make some really cool stuff.
Yeah, Corey's on the KineMaster. I rotate between KineMaster and iMovie. I love Keynote for a lot of different reasons. Like you can build some really heavy duty stuff on Keynote. I don't know if you've ever seen my ABCs of I don't know, I had like a juggling one, I had ABC, just like a workout one, and the kids, had different words that they're spelling out with their stuff. And I built that all on Keynote and IMG Play. That's how I built the GIFs, put them all on that Keynote, put the letter right under it, and then screen recorded it and just repeated it with the timer on the bottom already that I previously made. And so like Keynote can handle some real stuff. Like
yeah, it's pretty powerful.
And
I've actually considered, so at my school, our last hour of the day, we have this like special time where we're not doing it right now because, we only have 10 kids in each classroom and we can't like intermingle them, but we do. So like my job at the end of the day is kids who have tested a certain like level or higher get to be in like a club kind of thing. And so like I'd have kids from like kindergarten through 5th grade show up in the gym, and I get to, I have done like Foursquare Club, and I did this game called Cube. You guys ever heard of Cube? It's like a lawn game where you take these like wooden blocks and you toss them at each other. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, I've seen it. Yeah. Have you played that one?
Yeah. So it's like bones and skulls is what you call it. And so I had this idea this year. I'm like, oh man, when we get back in person, I'm going to make, because all our kids have iPads and they can get Keynote on there. We're going to do like making PE games in Keynote and teach the kids how to do some animation and stuff like that. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, that's going to be great. Yeah. You know who?
Then I'll steal all their ideas.
There's no copyright infringement there. No, you guys know Lynn Hef? She does her really good books. Corey,
I know of her.
Okay, Lynn Hef is a really nice lady, and she does everything on PowerPoint. It's just like crazy how her brain works. Like she just loves PowerPoint because she knows everything. But Corey, what do you got that you're like wanting to learn? Because I'm pretty sure Nick and I can help get you to the next step of what you want. Because I think you were talking about apps, you're talking about websites. What do you want to learn how to do, Corey, so we can get you there?
Learn how to do as far as improving my videos?
Just improving what you're doing next.
Man, so my focus is this goes back to everybody makes it their own, like talking about the lady with the PowerPoint. That's her thing. That's what she does. My focus is always idea themed. Like I put 90% of my effort in making a video goes into creating a storyline. Okay, we just did this. What's going to be next? Trying to be creative and the flow of the video. So that's what I'm always trying to improve, because my goal is to get kids to be like when you get to see a kid sucked into a book, I want them to be like that with my games. It's for me, it's like writing a kid's book that's interactive. So that's where I'm always trying to improve is what can I come up with next? What can I, if that makes any sense at all.
No, it makes 100% sense. And, you know, it'd be great to see your website or your app develop. I know that's what's on the books coming up, man. I can't
I need
wait.
to be a better business person, I guess. Yeah, I need to be better at the business side of it, because my business sense is pretty poor. I can come up with some pretty crazy and awesome ideas, but as far as marketing it and selling it, that's where, I mean, I'm not a business person at all.
Nick, what have you found to be very successful for you?
Oh man, just, I don't know. I've always kind of believed that just, you know, when you make something that's engaging, like people will follow it. And, I mean, that's really it. Although like the YouTube thumbnails, that's your marketing right there. Like Corey's got he just puts the word chase on it, and it's like they just know, like people just know, okay, like I know the chase games, I know this is a chase game, they know what they're getting. And some of my ideas are just so off in left field sometimes that I'm like, how do I even make a thumbnail for this that like accurately describes what you're gonna get when you you know, like I did Snowfright, and I actually just redid yesterday. I redid the thumbnails for those, just because I think that some people see it and they're like, oh, this is a video, this is like a scary movie, like there's like a monster, like that. I don't really understand why that's showing up when I'm looking for like kids workout things or kids exercise videos. And so yeah, I kind of sometimes like looking at it from like outside of my own head is one of the hardest things. Just like, how are other people going to see this so they can find it? Because I think it's a great game. And I mean, of course, I'm going to think that it's great because, you know, I'm the person who made it. But, you know, I have other people who are telling me that it's great too. So I'm like, okay, like now what? Now I got to get more people to be able to see it, because I think that kids who have played it absolutely love it. And so just trying to find a way for it to be like, get that book cover that's going to draw people's attention in.
Do you use Canva or Keynote, or what do you use?
I use an app called Sketch. It's kind of like a simplified Adobe Illustrator. It's just Illustrator without all the extra. I've had it for years. I quit teaching a few years back because I had a really rough experience with an administrator, and I worked for a tech startup. And so while I was there, I was doing all their graphic design and whatnot, redesigning their app. And so I got sucked into this Sketch app back then. And that's kind of how I redesigned the entire new like UI for their app.
So tell us about that. Tell us about leaving the industry and then coming back into teaching. Like, you know, don't need to repeat what the administrator's weaknesses were or anything, but what made you know that, you know what, you're ready to go back, or what was it like going to a startup and experiencing that?
So it was, I mean, it was just such a rough situation where like my wife wasn't working at the time. My first son was on the way. I left that job in December of that year. I'd been there for almost 5 years, and I'd been looking to get out for a few years. And you guys know, as PE teachers, it's tough to find a new gig, especially. I mean, like there was a job I applied for where like in the first day they got 200 applicants. And so, I mean, it's just super competitive, especially around here. And everybody wants to be a PE teacher in a good school. It's the life, right? And so I just had a really hard time like moving on from that job. I knew that my heart wasn't in it anymore. Like I was there for the kids, but like as far as the place I was at, like I was just ready to be out of there. It was just a toxic environment. And yeah, they basically, I was miserable. I quit 6 days before my first son was born. And yeah, so I was just looking for anything that was not teaching. I was like, if this is the way that it's going to be everywhere, because I had another friend that taught in another district, and he was kind of going through the same thing. And I was like, man, if this is the way that teaching in the district is going to be, like, maybe this just isn't for me. Like I'm too much of my own like independent person to kind of bend to the will of like what other people want. And that kind of sounds worse than it is, but
Doesn't sound bad at all, man. I totally
no,
agree.
I just kind of felt like I knew what our kids needed, and I felt like I didn't have a voice in that, and so it just wasn't the space for me. And so it was really good that I got out. And yeah, I landed this job doing it started out as like customer support for this little tech startup. It was me, their iOS developer, and then the two guys that started it. And it was just four of us in an office. And the funny thing is, what got me the job was my PE animated videos that I'd been making. I just showed them that, and I was like, hey, this is just kind of how, like, I mean, I kind of feel like with tech, you got to be able to explain things to people like they're kids, and like make it engaging so that they understand exactly what to do and how to solve their problems. And I showed them some of those videos, and I got hired that day. And man, I loved it. It was so weird though. Like my first day on the job was a Friday. And so I'm sitting there talking to our CEO, and one of the other guys that started the company. He comes in, he's like, Nick, it's like, I'm running to the liquor store. What kind of beer you want? I was like, wait, we could have beer while we're working here? Just not something I was used to in all my years working in a school. And so it was pretty nice. I loved it. I worked there for about a year, and then we outsourced our Android app, and we had some bugs that just basically killed the product, and we lost a lot of funding. And so I was there for a year, and then we lost all our funding, and we just kind of fell apart. And that's kind of, that's the risk you take with a startup, but it was great working with those guys. And, they went on to other things and just kind of hired me on the side for some graphic design stuff. But it was great. I mean, like I started customer service, but like by the end of that first year, I had my hand in everything. I was doing the marketing, the Facebooking, the Twitter. I was like on Reddit with them. And
he needs to teach us that stuff. That's what he needs to share with us. Like
I was awful at it. Like I go back and I look at some of these ads that I created, and it's a little cringy, but it was also, I mean, it was kind of fun too at the same time. Like we were just having fun with it. We was just four guys in an office building having fun, just trying to make this thing work. And yeah, so I ended up out of a job again. And so I'm looking around for work, and I was looking for everything but teaching. And I had some friends, they were trying to get their kids into this charter school, and they noticed that there was a PE opening at this charter school because they were opening a new building. And so they were like, oh, you got to apply for this school. It's just way different than your previous experience. Like it's just a totally different vibe. You got to check it out. So I applied, and, it's 3 interviews. And by the end of the 3rd interview, I was like, okay, if they offer me a job, I think I'll take it. But it took 3 interviews for me to like get over that hump. And it's been awesome. Like my principal has just been amazing. Just so supportive. Like everything that I do, they're just incredibly supportive of. Like they just allowed, I mean, like my creativity just like skyrocketed at this school just because of that support. And it's just crazy what that does for you. Like when you just know that you can take risks and you can take chances, and it's okay if you like screw up because you've got that support coming from above. And so that's where I'm at.
Well, that fosters you to be able to share that with students. that, you know, failure is part of the process. Failure is part of life. Failure is part of everything. You know, Corey and I had a real deep and meaningful conversation last time. He was explaining how you know, he played in the major leagues for a little bit, and once it was time to move on, he moved on, and that set him up to be such a good mentor for what he does in his classroom. You know, Corey, did you want to add something about that nice little story Nick just shared with us?
I mean, talking about the administrative support, one of the best compliments I can give my administration, all the way up to the central office, is they let us do our thing. Like they don't mess with the PE department because they know that we're going to do a good job with whatever we do. So the best thing I could say about our administration is they let us be us. It's like hands off. Okay, you do your thing. And like you said, Nick, that allows me to take my creativity as high and as far as I want to take it, which has made me such a better teacher. And part of that
is great. I mean, it's differentiation coming from above, right? Like they want us to differentiate our instruction and our, you know, the way that we assess our students. But like in the previous district I was at, like I was getting evaluated off the same things that like the third grade classroom, like math teacher is getting evaluated. It's just different. And so, yeah, a little bit of that. Wait, Corey, tell me more about this baseball career.
I played in college, Western Carolina for 4 years. I went to Western Carolina on a teaching scholarship, which was the biggest teaching scholarship in the state of North Carolina. Had to do interviews for it. It was like a big application process. So that was a big part of my 4 years in college, was that teaching scholarship. And then I played baseball on top of that. And then 4 years of college, I was drafted in 2009 by the Cubs. Played for 3 years with the Cubs. And I told the story about my release last time I talked to George. They just call you into the office, the GM's office, like, hey, sorry, you've been great, but we don't need you anymore. Here's your plane ticket. You'll fly out tomorrow at 5:30 a.m. Just like that, baseball was done. You know, it's like, okay, now what do I do with my life? And yeah, just a couple months later, I'm sitting on an activity bus with the middle school girls basketball team all screaming behind me, thinking like, man, life sure did happen fast. You know, like not too long ago, I was being chartered on an airplane with people carrying my luggage, and now I'm sitting on a middle school activity bus with the girls basketball team. Not that it's a bad thing. It was just so different than, you know, lifestyles completely changed. But that's the number one thing that I try to push to my kids, you know, like you're going to fail, whether it's playing a game of kickball or whether it's something huge that's a big part of your life, you're going to experience failure. And I want the kids to learn how to handle winning and learn how to handle failure. And if I can do those two things, I feel like I've been a successful PE teacher.
Oh, for sure. What position you play?
Oh, you want more of the baseball goodness?
No, I was just curious. Like I had a friend who played. He was a pitcher in college and kind of went through some of the ups and downs like that.
Yeah. I was a pitcher. I was a closer in pro ball. A starter in college, closer in pro ball. So I've been in the heated parts of the games where the game's on the line, and I've won a bunch, and I've also lost a few walk-off home runs with me left standing on the mound and the other team celebrating at home plate. So I've definitely experienced my share of ups and downs with baseball. Right-handed pitcher, threw a fastball and a slider, and that was it. That's all you need as a closer. You just need two really good pitches, and I didn't even mess with the third pitch, just those two, and that's what I lived off of.
There you go.
I faced Mike Trout. Mike Trout was actually okay. I don't know if I told you this story.
You didn't tell me this one. This is the juiciness came out when Nick comes on.
Yeah, so,
here we go. Let's go.
Man, so spring training 2011. The previous year I'd pitched in AA, pitched in AAA, like I was on my way up, you know, and left the year in 2010. My exit meeting, they were like, Martin, you know, great year. We could easily see you starting in AAA next year and finishing up in the big leagues. And I'm like, yeah. Well, then Lou Piniella gets fired in the offseason. And when the manager of the major league club gets fired, pretty much everybody that was with them is gone too. So complete restructure of the minor league coaching staff. So the next spring training, it's like starting all over again. And I knew like, okay, I have to perform. If I do not perform this spring training at the highest level, I'm gone. Because, you know, I was a senior sign when I got drafted, meaning only I was signed for $1,000, next to nothing. And you got the guy that I'm competing for a spot with who signed for $500,000. So I knew that I had to be on my game. And I did okay. It wasn't great, but I did okay. I made it to the very last day of spring training, the very last cut, and we were playing against the Angels. This is in Arizona. The Cubs, the Angels, and like, you know, half the major league clubs have their spring training based in Arizona. And we were playing against the Angels. It was Double-A, and 2011. I come in to close the game out. Started off, I loaded up the bases, and I'm thinking like, oh, this is it. Like, I got to get out of this. If I lose this, I'm done. The pitching coach comes out. The only pitching coach that was still there from the previous 2 years. He Puerto Rican, like, Martin, you know, you got to give them your best stuff, man. You got to hit them with the hard stuff. I'm like, yeah. Well, anyways, long story shorter, catcher calls for a slider. I'm like, what are you doing? I call him out. He's like, you don't want to throw this guy your fastball. Don't throw this guy your fastball. Throw him your slider. Trust me. First pitch. Do not let this guy see your fastball. And I'm like, no, you know, F that. I'm throwing him. Yeah, give him the hard stuff. And he's like, all right. So I throw him a fastball. Dude launches it 475 feet over the clubhouse in right center field. I get released the next day. It was Mike Trout. Yeah, the dude that hit the ball is Mike Trout. And I'm in a Facebook group that has 50,000 guys, not 50, maybe like 15,000 guys that played professional baseball at some point. We all share stories. And somebody asked, like, hey, does anybody have any good Mike Trout stories? I threw that story into the group, and then a couple other guys were like, oh my gosh, yeah, I was there for that game. Like, he wasn't even supposed to play. He was coming off of a rehab, and just they decided to give him a rehab at bat the last part of that spring training game. I'm like, of course, you know, like Mike Trout rehab at bat is off of me when my career is on the line. But, you know, if there was a way to go out and if there was a way for my career to end, I guess that's probably one of the coolest ways that my career could possibly end was giving up a home run to Mike Trout. Sounds fabricated. I promise you it's 1,000% true.
There we go. That's awesome.
Nick,
kind of. I mean, it sucks, but
yeah. Went out strong.
Just mind blown right there, man. Just chills just listening to the story. So Nick, could you share how you like what's a normal day in your classroom like? What's a normal day for those kids? Or is there even a normal day? Is it just we change it up every week?
Well, so in normal times, it's I mean, it's quite a bit different than now. I mean, now it's just we just got back into the building. We have to be in our little boxes, and so my gym is it's like the size of a classroom. I've got 8-foot ceilings, and I actually don't mind the size of the room as much, except for the height. 8-foot ceilings with drop tile. The drop tile is like the bane of my existence. Like anytime a ball hits the ceiling, tile comes down, crashes on the floor. We got a big old mess, and I'm just like, I'm a little OCD sometimes, especially like when it comes to cleaning things. And so like I've just had to like just beat it into myself, like, not my problem. I'm not the one who put drop tile in this room. Like, not the kid's problem either. We're just gonna let it go. Like, hey, it's a mess. No big deal. We're gonna try and squeeze that thing back up there and like duct tape it back to the ceiling. We'll be all right. No big deal. If they don't like the way it looks, they can come back in and fix it. Like, you know, and like, I mean, like I said, like my principal, she's like the same way. She's like, well, whatever. Like, if it gets damaged, like if they knew it was gonna be a gym. So, but yeah, they so in normal times, like I like to give the kids a choice as soon as they come in the gym. That's kind of one of my big things is I like to think through like the minds of the kids, like what's going to get them the most engaged and get the most buy-in. And so like there are things that I know that they want to do when they come in the gym. And if I don't give them that opportunity to do some of those things, then I'm going to be hearing it the whole time. Like, when are we going to get to do this? Like we have a rock wall that goes the entire length of one of the walls in the gym is a rock wall. And that just goes back to like my admin being awesome because they're like, what do you need in this space to make it work? I was like, well, we don't have a lot of horizontal space. Let's use some of this vertical space over here. And so it's great. I'll always do like a rotation for games. So like in a normal gym, I do 2 teams doing a game, but you know, with the size of the gym I have, I'll do 4 teams doing a game. So I'll have like 1 team over here, you know, 2 teams playing, and then 1 team's on the wall. And then another team is like, I've got these like rebounders They're basically like super fancy, like trampolines that are actually good for your knees and your joints. And so I've got those and some other things that kids can do off on the side. And it's kind of awesome. Like if I ever move to a bigger space, like I want to incorporate those kind of things into that space, because it really breaks things up for the kids. Like, you know, sometimes, and I just learned even while I'm making these games, is that kids have such a short attention span. And the more that you can switch things up and the more that you can like create a new challenge for them, they feed into it. And so even just by rotating between like 4 stations of like a game and the rock wall and like jumping on the trampolines, like just the buy-in is so much bigger. And then like those kids who like, they don't like playing floor hockey or whatever it is, but they do like climbing on the rock wall or jumping on the trampolines. And so they'll at least get some of the time where they really like what we're doing. So yeah, when we start out, they come in the gym and I give them, you know, like 10 choices of things they can do. Like I'll like throw out dots on the floor and they can hop from dot to dot, like the floor is lava kind of thing, or they can climb the rock wall, they can jump on the trampolines, they can, and I've got this game called Floor Square that I made, where it's kind of like a mix between Foursquare and Gaga Ball, where you hit the ball. And so I'll always have 2 courts of that because the kids love it. Yeah, so I teach all that in the beginning of the year. That's my first unit, is all of my striking stuff. And then we use those games for warm-ups throughout the year. That's my sub plan, is all these games that I know they know and I know that they can do without any problems or any arguments. And so, but yeah, we'll do that. Then we'll do a unit. My units this year have been just kind of, I mean, there's only so much throwing you can do when you have kids at home that are only using a paper ball or a sock. And but normally I would break it up by skill. We'll do striking with our hands, and then we'll move into striking with a paddle, and then we'll move into like striking with a longer implement like a hockey stick. Don't really do much baseball in my space. I don't want kids swinging a bat when they're 3 feet from somebody else. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. And then I've learned last year I started doing like meditation at the end of classes. I've gotten enough feedback that kids are just like super hyped when they leave PE, which I always took as a compliment because it means I did my job. But I know that it does make classroom teachers' jobs a little bit harder when kids are just amped from the exercise. And like we would just go to the very last minute of class and then like, boom, line up, see you next time. And but I started doing meditation at the end of last year, and just night and day with the way that the kids like move out. And I just started to recognize that like getting them all hyped up and like amped about moving is great, but there's also that flip side of the coin, which is like teaching them how to calm and to soothe and to relax themselves is an equally important part. And so starting that last year was great. So I made a couple calming cool down videos this year that I've done them every day since we've been back. Is we'll get amped up and we'll get all excited in the last like 5 to 10 minutes of the class. We're gonna sit, and the nice thing is with these videos, kids who still have the energy to move can move. Mm-hmm. Like there's like stretches or yoga or whatever on the screen. But like, I also kind of give them the ability, like, hey, if you're just exhausted, lay down, sit down, just take this time for yourself. And it's just a great way to end the class, is just giving them time to cool themselves.
I want to be in your class, Coach. I want to be in your class. That sounds like a lot of fun. Good. No, that I mean, Corey shared with me his magic to have behavior improve, and I've actually done it this last week.
Which part?
The star student of the day, star PE student of the day, and he said I draw the kids doing layups. I draw the kids, throwing a ball. We were working on with the balloons, and we are doing some volleyball skills, and I drew the kids with the balloon, and I was like, oh yeah, this is you. Do you like it? And they're like, I love it.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
And I love that. Nothing too crazy, that's something that I added on. But Corey, what's a normal day in your class? Unless you want to add something about Nick's class first that you really got interested about. You can do both.
I love how there's structure, but it's also, you give the kids freedom. And I'm the same exact way. I feel like if you're too overly structured, now with me saying this, understand if you got a class size of 50 plus kids, it's a little bit different. I understand you got to be a little bit more structured with that. But I'm like you, Nick, when it comes to like, I'm not going to be 5 minutes of this, and then it's got to be 5 minutes of this, and then we're going to do 7 minutes of this. No, it's just kind of go with the flow, give the kids some freedom, redirect when you need to, and then take it from there. So I really like your class. Sounds very similar to mine. It's not a military style class where it's this, line up, go home, come back the next day. No, it's he sounds very similar to the same style of teaching that I use. But once again, he makes it his, I make it mine. That's what's so great about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those brain breaks at the end are just money. You set those kids up for the rest of their day, maybe their week, because they're going through so much, and we don't get to see that. We don't see the scars in the brain. We don't see what's going on at home, and we just set them up for success. Like, this is what you can do if you can't go to sleep. This is what you can do if you're upset because your toy broke. I mean, toys break all the time. Like, I always think about it, like, what's going on in a kid's day that's going to make them upset? Like, you didn't get to go to McDonald's, but you at least get to relax and take care of your body by doing these little brain breaks. And if you don't feel like you can go to sleep, you should have been moving more. Like, you need to go burn them calories. What is something that you guys always tell your kids, like, you try to put it in their brain all the time? Like, this is something that you share with them. Like, they're going to hold on to this, hopefully, for the rest of their lives if they listen. What do you got, Nick?
Oh, man. That's, we kind of touched on it earlier, is just like, failure is part of the process. Like, I just want my kids to understand that if you're not failing, it's because you're not trying hard enough. And every failure is an opportunity to learn something. And so I just think that it's so important for kids to get that. And I kind of feel like that was something that was missed on me as a kid. And so, like, I was just afraid of failure and afraid to take chances.
Can I cut you off real quick? And I want to
go for it.
Very relevant to what you're saying. That's why I wanted to throw it in there. There's a lot of teachers out there that are so afraid to put kids in situations where there's going to be failure, where there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. And that's where, if that's the type of teacher that you have over the course of time, when you do finally fail, it's like, wait a second, I've never experienced this before. Like, what's going on? And that's where the big issues come in. So I agree. What I'm saying is I agree with you 1,000%.
Yeah, it's, and for me, I teach physical skills. I mean, as a PE teacher, like, that's a part of my job, but I really see my job as, like, my job is to help these kids build confidence and, like, real confidence. And to me, the way that I see real confidence is you are doing things and you're showing yourself what you are capable of. Like, it's not a fake it till you make it. It's like, fail until you make it. Because then when you learn these things and you see what you're capable of, like, you just know that you can take on more things. When you see yourself do something and you can do it, that's confidence. And that's why, like, as a kid, I really had poor confidence. And you notice, like, if you just look at your school population, like, kids who play sports tend to have more confidence. Well, they tend to take more risks. They tend to fail more often, and they tend to learn from those mistakes. And they're always proving to themselves what they can do. Like, the kids that are playing outside and, like, climbing trees and getting dirty and stuff, they're just proving to themselves all the time what they are capable of. And I just think that builds real confidence. And that's the ultimate thing that I think that they can gain from our classes.
That's deep. 100% deep. Nick, I mean, I had respect for you before. Now it's like 15 million levels above, because because, you know, the way that I always look at it is I want my students to become self-actualized, which is just a different term to kind of what you're saying. When you have that self-actualization, you know that anything that ever comes in front of you, you're going to be able to overcome it, regardless if you know how to do it immediately, but you're going to be able to overcome it. You're broke, we're going to overcome it. We got car problems. I'm gonna get the right person to help me fix this, and we're gonna move on. But that's not gonna be the end of my life. Like, that's not gonna be the only obstacle that changes me and puts me in a downward spiral. Like, we're gonna set this thing up for long-term longevity and success, regardless of where we are and where we've been. Corey, what do you like to share with your students? You know,
I mean, it's essentially the same stuff. We talk about sportsmanship all the time, but it's one thing to talk about it. It's another thing to actually practice it and put it into play. Well, then it becomes the discussion of what is sportsmanship, you know, is because when you think about sportsmanship, most people probably think about, okay, the game's over. What are you going to do? You won or you lost? How are you going to handle it? But it could go so much deeper than that. You know, like I'm always trying to encourage my kids, if you're not playing, if you're sitting waiting your turn to play, stay engaged in the game, but do it in a supportive way. And I use the incentive of, okay, like while these teams are playing, I'm watching the sidelines, and the guys that I see that are supportive, that are encouraging, that are into it, y'all are going to be the next ones to play. I mean, that's a very abbreviated version of it, but that's really helped. And that's really created the culture of what I'm trying to accomplish, which is the good sportsmanship.
So I have so from the perspective of a prior pro athlete, one of the things that I always say is, like, guys, we're not playing for money here. Right? So, like, when it comes to the sportsmanship, but I think that you could provide a really interesting perspective on sportsmanship, like as it pertains to the pro athlete as well.
Oh man, I feel like this is a whole nother discussion. When there's money involved, all right, let me preface it with this. In pro baseball, it's very cutthroat. If you don't provide, if you don't produce, if you don't create benefit for your organization, you're done. And the feeling of sitting in the locker room after a game, watching the manager come into the players' locker room, anytime the manager walked into the players' locker room after a game, somebody was about to get called out into the office and sent home. And I remember watching that happen over and over and over. And I mean, this might sound completely off topic, but it's totally relevant. And you got to remember, I'm competing for the same spot as my best friend who I've been rooming with over the past 2 months. He's a relief pitcher. I'm a relief pitcher. Somebody's going to get promoted to AAA or whatever, whenever that spot comes available. Is it going to be me or is it going to be them? So in pro baseball, it's a completely different culture. You know, because you want your friends to do well, but at the same time, you know, like if there's a spot that opens up, I want it to be me. Like, I'm trying to make it to the major leagues, you know? So pro baseball is a totally different world when it comes to college baseball. It's like, hurrah, you know, you watch a college baseball game and look at the dugout, and then watch a professional baseball game and look at the dugout. Watch a college game, watch how the players run onto the field between innings, and then watch a pro game and watch how the players run onto the field. When there's money involved and it's this guy's trying to make millions and I'm trying to make millions, totally different. College, nobody's getting paid. You know, it's let's go out here as a team and win. Two totally different ways to go about it, college and pro. You probably, now that I mentioned, you can probably think back to watching college, watching pro baseball, and seeing how totally different they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the group dynamics, you know, that's something that I work on big time, but it's a different level, obviously. Children group dynamics are so key to healthy relationships, so key to like supporting each other, so key to like, instead of having a bullying type of culture, you prevent it before it ever even becomes an option. You know that you are either a family or a team unit, and we're here to help each other out. You know, like if somebody isn't that great, does that really matter? No. What matters is that like we're gonna pump them up and we're gonna keep working with them and making sure that by the time they leave, they feel good. And like, you know, if they were able to do it 1 out of 10 times, but they weren't able to do it before at all, we're going to pump that kid up. You know, we're going to let them know that that was good. You know, it's nothing compared to your experiences like it and going into that locker room. It's just it's a different world.
It was a lot of pressure, man. It sounds like, oh, he played pro baseball. He lived out his dream. Look, I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But the amount of pressure that I was under every day, especially when you're having a bad stretch, you've had 3 or 4 outings in a row that didn't go very well. Just the pressure of walking into the clubhouse thinking to myself, is this it? Is this the last day? I'm ever going to be able to put on my baseball glove, throw on my cleats, and go play the game that I love, that's been my entire life. And another side story, that's why 2 years ago, I got back in shape even at 33 years old, got back in shape to play again, just so that I could play. I could go try out for a couple of independent league teams, go play men's league baseball. And I wanted my last playing days to be no stress, just go out there for the love of the game and have fun with it. I'm so glad that I did that because, looking back on my pro ball career, I loved it, wouldn't trade it for anything, but I regret the pressure of having to perform, taking away from the fun and the love of the game, if that makes any sense at all.
But I just feel like that's like such a huge asset to your kids too, though. It's because we all got those kids who are like, oh, I'm going to be the next Patrick Mahomes. Like, yeah, but let me tell you what that world is going to look like for you for a while.
Or how about you make a middle school team first?
Yeah. But I just think that like those experiences of like playing with all that pressure, like provides a really unique perspective that you are able to give to your kids that I think is awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it absolutely does. 100%. And whenever a kid says that, like I want to be in the NBA or I want to be in the NFL, I encourage it. Like, yes, that's awesome. Keep that dream. But understand, just because you want something doesn't mean it's going to happen. There's steps you have to take to get there. Like I just said, if you're a 6th grader and you want to play in the NFL, guess what? You've got to make the middle school team first. And then once you make the middle school team, guess what? You're going to have to like bust your rear end to be top level. And then once middle school is over, guess what? You're going to be trying out for the high school team. You got to make the high school team. And then, yeah, you can become the best high school player that you want to be, but that's still not going to get you to the NFL, because then you got to get to college. You got to get a scholarship or have a chance to play in college. There's so many layers to it that I try to get the kids to understand, just because you want something and it's your dream, it's not just going to magically happen, because we do live in a society where things are often just gifted to kids. Here, you don't work for it. You can just have it. You can take it. That's not how the game works. That's not how life works. That's, the kids have to understand there's steps and there's a lot of hard work that has to be put into something that you want.
Absolutely. And I think even as teachers, the gigs that we have are special. We have this uncanny ability to work with every single child on campus. Your kid with special needs, your future Hall of Famer for a sport that you might not even know about. You got to work with every single one of them kids and treat them with respect, love, kindness, and set them up for success in that environment. I just want to see go around, maybe everybody have a little final thought, and then we could set something up, and maybe we can get Nick on here again in the future in a couple months. He's got such a busy lifestyle, taking care of them beautiful children and wife, and he's just it was great having you, dude. You got this knowledge in there, and we got to pick it out next time a little bit more. Go ahead, Nick.
Sounds good.
What else would you like to share?
Oh man. Yeah, I just think that I'm really interested to see how what we as PE teachers have done this year is going to translate into future years. Like, I think it's been really cool that we've been teaching kids how to do things with what they have at home. And that's something that I never did before. Like, playing group games in the gym is great and it's a lot of fun, but like they can't do that when they go home. And then I think that like the games that Corey and I have been, and even you, George, have been able to make and put online, kids can get that anytime they want. Like I told Corey the other day that like my 6-year-old wanted to do some of the chase games. And so I just turned it on the TV one Friday night, and it let me do dishes and get some stuff done around the house. And like all 3 of my boys are in the living room, like dodging aliens. And like, they're like, when's the next one coming out? And So, I mean, like and normally, I mean, yeah, there's other things that they can do where they're not looking at a screen, but it's, I feel better turning that on than just like turning on a movie. And, and I think that we're kind of onto something. Like I started making the videos because I wanted the kids in my school to have more opportunities to move. Like when they get back in their classrooms, like they could just get an iPad and like go to the back of the class if they have like a time when their teacher lets them, and they can play some of these games and they can move, or we can set up little nooks or whatever in the hallways where if kids need a brain break, that they could just get out of their classroom and have more opportunities to move throughout the day. And I'm really interested to see where the future goes for getting more movement throughout the day.
I love your insight. No, I, you know, we taught all these kids online or, you know, in person. What is the long lasting effects of our teaching when they were at home? Wow, that was great stuff. What do you have, Corey, for today? What do you want to end on today?
I mean, I guess final thought, when you look at like the coronavirus pandemic, something terrible like the coronavirus pandemic, a lot of people can just sit there and complain about it and say, oh, you know, this stinks, that stinks. One thing that all three of us have in common is we've taken something terrible like the pandemic and brought so many good things out of it, so many skills that we didn't know that we had before. That's the one piece of advice that I would give to people, not just referencing the coronavirus, but anytime something bad happens, learn from it, grow from it, look at it as an opportunity to improve yourself.
I just want to say thank you to both of you. And my final thought is just continue to be patient. Like sometimes we want to be done with the thing so quickly, we forget to enjoy the process. Like, yeah, I know Corey has a great spring break trip, but like enjoy the driving, enjoy the traveling. Like, don't let that be a hindrance to the actual enjoyment of the whole vacation. Because I know that because I traveled all over the world, you know, I could share that one day with you guys. But if you're looking for what's next, you're not going to enjoy what's right now. Just enjoy it because it's so short. And when you do get that little happiness, just stay there as long as you can, and then you're gonna rotate away from it, and then you find something else. And you know, same thing with your kids. When you see them doing the right thing and they're being kind, enjoy it because you facilitated an opportunity. They took that opportunity and they're continuing to want to be better. And that's all we want: the kids to become better, and they're gonna be adults soon, sooner than we think, man. Well, I appreciate you boys, and you know, thank you guys so much. I'll end the recording right here, and